British fishermen hope Brexit will mean they'll be allowed to catch more fish. 92% of the fishing industry was in favour of Brexit, thinking leaving the EU would save the fishing industry. The EU's common fishery policy places quotas on the number of fish fishermen are allowed to catch each month. But fishermen say the quotas are unfair. The policy also allows fishermen from any EU nation to fish freely within the 200 nautical miles limit of the exclusive economic zone, meaning that boats from France, Spain, or Italy are allowed to fish in UK waters. But French boats are allowed to catch almost 7 times more haddock and 9 times more cod than English ones, giving British fishermen the impression that others are stealing their fish. I'm here at Ramsgate Harbour, where fishermen are being confined to port because of the fog. Not only do they depend on tides and weather to earn a living, but now their future also depends on the outcome of the Brexit negotiations. What they want is to scrap the common fisheries policy and regain access to their waters. Steve Barrett has been fishing in Ramsgate, Kent for the past 28 years. Like most fishermen here, he voted to leave the EU. To make sure he fills his quota efficiently, he uses larger netting to catch only the bigger fish. He says the common fishery policy imposed by Brussels is just not working.
It's a one-rule-fits-all sort of scenario where they come up with a rule, everybody has to abide by it. The intentions were good, it's to protect fish stocks, but it has been a disaster and it's failed with tons and tons and tons of dead fish being thrown back needlessly every day of the year.
Small-scale fishermen like Steve feel like the system is only profitable to the biggest traders. To avoid catching fish which he's already reached his quota for, Steve has to go further out in the sea, hoping to catch different kinds of fish. Despite his effort, he still catches fish he has to throw back.
I don't know how much fuel I burn from there to up here, but it cost me about £10 a day to work here, and I can't. So not only am I burning loads of fuel, which is costing me more money and is not good for the environment, it's crazy. It's just utter madness. A boat this size should not be working 15 miles out to sea.
While fishermen embark on more dangerous fishing trips, the policy also fails to protect the environment. For Steve, these issues explain the decline of the fishing industry. In fact, landings of fish in the UK have more than halved since the 1970s, going from 948,000 tons to 415,000 tons in 2015, while the number of registered vessels has dropped from 8,667 in 1996 to 6,187 in 2015. But now that Brexit is a reality, the tide might not be in favor of fishermen, as quotas and other restrictions will still exist.
There's a chance that everything fails and we voted to leave the EU and we don't get what we want. We're all hoping that doesn't happen, and we're all fighting for what we believe is right. If we are unfortunately sold down the river and used as a bargaining chip, it will be the end of the industry, and I for one will be able to hold my head up high and say, at least I tried.
The main concern is that the UK exports 66% of its fish to the EU, and being outside the single market could mean the industry will have to pay tariffs in order to export its fish. Fish from all over the place end up in Ramsgate Market, UK's largest inland fish market. Every morning, merchants wake up at dawn to sell their fish to restaurant owners, fishmongers, and members of the public. The sellers start unpacking their merchandise as early as 4 a.m. Mark Morris, from Lulu & Morris, one of the biggest traders on the market, has witnessed the decline of the industry. He too voted leave. Brexit, he hopes, will restore the industry to its former glory.
Hopefully, if we take back full control from Brussels and it's governed here in Britain, not only will it continue, it will thrive, and who knows, maybe in 15, 20 years' time we'll see the British fishing industry back to where it was in the 50s, 60s and the early 70s before the common fisheries policy took a hold.
In response to the fishing industry's discontent, Greenpeace is campaigning for a fair and sustainable system. They're asking for a new policy to be based on economic, social and environmental criteria. Heads of Ocean, Will McCallum, explains there's something terribly wrong with the current system.
The fishermen who are doing the most damage are also the ones who are really benefiting from the current system, because they're the ones who knew how to play a game and really lucked out, I guess.
But the fishing industry is worried that the negotiations will be sidelined because the trade accounts for less than half of 1% of the country's GDP. The government body in charge of redrafting the policy refused to be interviewed, as they say it would not be appropriate for them to discuss policies which are yet to be formed.
I think it's perfectly possible everything will collapse in terms of the trade deals and fishermen will end up worse off than they were before, which will be a real tragedy because they were promised the most. And whoever was making those promises in the run-up to the referendum has a lot to answer for, because they were based on supposition, they were based on assumptions, they weren't based on reality.
Although the future of Brexit is uncertain, one thing is for sure: during the campaign, issues were simplified for fishermen, desperate because of the decline of the industry. As they wait for the government's decisions on the status of UK waters and fishing quotas, the industry can only hope for change.